So, good day everyone. So, what I wanted to share to you today is about strategic human resource management. Now, don't forget to understand and to analyze what I'm talking about related to different modules because every topics or every module, I have 3 questions that you need to answer. What you are going to do is just simply answer all those questions and try to write the name and the title and the name of the topic you choose and to answer. Okay? So, of course, strategic human resource management. The theoretical roots for the study of human resource management in organization have existed in the Western context for over a century when seminal ideas of influential management thinkers such as Taylor, Drucker, and McGregor were in prevalence. Earlier conceptualization of work and employment adopted a different emphasis in focus on terms such as labor welfare, labor relations, personnel management, and industrial relations, to name a few. One could argue this view reflected contemporary developments in the field of human resource management, albeit with different ideological and philosophical focus that had been in operation for several centuries. So, for example, in India, work practices were influenced by the ancient ideas of Kanakya, so also referred to as Kautilya, who pioneering work on Arthashastra was regarded as a treatise in the field of economics, politics, military strategy, and governance. This seminal work had also developed ideas of organization and administration in the 4th century. Okay? Indeed, one only needs to turn back and look at the practices of one of the world's oldest multinational corporation, the erstwhile East India Company, which was founded in the early 1600s in India by the British to pursue trade with the East Indies. Even though it ended up trading in the main in the India's subcontinent, its operations span across several borders. Managing people in the colonial era was quite different from how we manage people today, of course. Some might even ask, has the nature of capitalism or business goals changed in principle? If so, what might have caused the change? Were these changes triggered by changes in people's aspiration of seeking better and humane conditions of work and employment, or due to changing political agendas, new legislation for protecting workers, change in ideologies, and other influences such as religion and industrial revolution? In these questions bring to our mind the importance of changes in context and each distinctive and highly variable character. Well, the immediate focus of human resource management and employment relationships, or ER, is on managing people and work within an agreed framework of the employer-employee relationship in setting the rules for engaging people and governing their conditions of employment. Human resource management and employee relations is also influenced by multiple direct and indirect factors. These include a range of factors such as different stakeholders, regulations, customers, and institutions. It is by learning the multiple and the specific instances from different contexts that we may be able to generate some generic guidelines for understanding how we manage people at work. The human resource and employee relations in a strategic perspective, it's explaining the key terms of strategy, the human resource management, and strategic human resource. It highlights that the study of strategic management offers numerous conceptualization of the term strategy, and that the study of strategy, human resource management, and employment relations must adopt a pluralist approach and place heavy emphasis on in developing a contextual understanding of how people management, strategy, and context interact to shape the multiple goals of strategic human resource management and employee relation. And this is followed by the commonly understood goals of human resource management. A descriptive understanding is a precondition to analyzing how to manage people and work in organizations. Based on description, we can seek to generate guiding principles from specific learnings. And this approach requires collective learning experiences from a diverse set of circumstances and involve developing a thick description of what people and managers do at our workplace. Based on such an approach, we can seek some answers into the what, why, and how of managing people in organization. Although subject matter expertise and underpinning theories are important for informing practice, such knowledge can be developed by contextualizing the learning through use of real-life examples and case studies from the real world. In line with our pedagogical choice of case-based learning stated earlier, the application of various strategic human resource management and employee relation concepts and how they apply to a number of industry and national contexts. The wide selection of case study from the manufacturing to service sectors from both domestic and international settings can help you to understand more about SHRM and ER. Further, the level of analysis varies from an industry to organizational to group and individual levels. Attention has also been paid to include cases from industry sectors that implement a range of human resource practices in service sector from the lower end of the service complexity continuum to high-end complex services. Such differentiation in the choice of case studies, including in this, the collection allows us to understand the complexity at play in shaping strategic human resource management and employee relations decisions and practices in diverse setting. This will be the chapter 1 key questions and learning activities that you need to answer. Question number 1, discuss how an organization's competitive strategy might impact each functional human resource strategy. Number 2, what are the key challenges in adopting a strategic approach to human resource management? Question number 3, is Porter's industry analysis sufficient for exercising strategic choices? Why or why not? The chapter 2 covered strategic human resource and ER best practice versus best fit. Building on our understanding of key terms of human resource management and ER, dwells upon two of the most popular school of thought in the study and practice of SHRM, the best practices and best fit schools. While the analysis of firms, business, and industry environment allows the dominant coalition to make strategic choices about its business and competitive positioning. This choice also has direct implications on how people are managed and work is organized in a business. Even though this has intuitive appeal and reinforces the importance of externalities, there are some schools of thought, such as best practice school, which adopts a universalistic approach, or in any other words, assume a more prescriptive characters in the design and implementation of SHRM and ER practices. The best fit school, on the other hand, as the name suggests, adapts and it depends on the context approach. Best fit approach consider numerous contingency factors that affect and shaping of the final set of human resource management practices. It is also evident in both these approaches is the concept of integration and fit. integration between strategy and human resource management practices is critical and key skill that business leaders will be expecting from HR leaders. Milmore noted several levels of integration and fit that operate in an organizational context. And of course, this include the downstream strategic integration, also referred to as a top-down integration, upstream strategic integration, also referred to as bottom-up organization integration, intra-functional integration, also referred to as horizontal integration, or integration between various activities in a functional area, and interfunctional integration, which focuses on integration between various business functions, so HR marketing, legal, and so on. The two most common approaches to strategic HRM, even though this is extensive support from meta-analytic studies exploring the HRM performance link, no, in line with Boxall, of course, and suggested differences between manufacturing and services sectors, in that the nature of HPWPS in each would be different due to the distinctiveness of various service market segments. The challenge, therefore, for future inquiries is to uncover additional contextual variables that can be systematically analyzed as part of the HPWP systems that considers both an organization's business, environment, and strategy. This will be the key question and learning activities for Chapter 2. Number 1, as an HR practitioner, how would you carry out a strategic analysis from an HR perspective? Number 2, analyze 3 influences on a firm's contextual environment. How are such influences likely to impact the strategic human resource choices it may want to exercise? Number 3 question, identify 3 examples of poor horizontal fit in human resource management. What might be the common reasons for it? To continue, our chapter 3 or module 3 is the resource-based view. Of course, it focused on an outside-in view of strategy as applied to SHRM and ER. In some ways, this approach brings balance to the literature on strategic management, which in the early stages of its development had an extensive reliance on rational outside-in views of strategy. And therefore, by including an inside-out approach to strategic analysis, an alternate and exciting avenue of investigation and analysis allows us to understand how a firm's internal endowments can be leveraged for sustained competitive advantage. Labeled as the resource-based view of a firm, and this approach to managing people has its foundation in Penrose's work. Penrose described our firm as an administrative structure and collection resources that are put to productive use for achieving an organization's production goals. Through their subjective interpretation of the firm's strategic milieu, senior management team decides the nature of resources they need to develop for achieving sustained competitive advantage. Penrose, of course, further argued that it is how a firm implements and organizes these bundles of resources and capabilities that forms the basis of an organization's competitive advantage, rather than relying on possessing value-creating resources and capabilities. The focus on resources and capabilities has also been popularized by the work of Pahalad and Hamel. This examine the resources and the organizational capabilities that matter and how firms ought to organize resources for achieving sustained competitive advantage. Managers are affected by the limits of their rationality and the challenges posed by asymmetrical market information about the nature and extent of competition. It is through their subjective impartial interpretation that managers make choices and take decisions about how they may be able to remain competitive in a market. Firms that are successful achieve competitive parity excuse, or have a clear competitive advantage over their competitors. When they can do so over sustained period of time, they are said to have achieved sustained competitive advantage. And they focus on RBV, is to create SCA through investing in and organizing their resources and capabilities. These resources can be tangible, so either physical and financial, or intangible, that is organizational, patents, and skilled human resources. In the context of managing people, we are most interested in how many human resource management policy choices and organizational strategies help in achieving our SCA. Of course, while individual human resource policies alone are less likely to generate SCA or superior value, a collective set of HR system can, along with the right pool of human capital and organizational capabilities. In the RBV of a firm or HCA and HPA collectively can be a sources of SCA. To capture value, firms need to think of developing resource heterogeneity and barriers to imitation by focusing on aspects such timing, nature of learning, social complexity, and casual ambiguity. And finally, not all resources are equal in enabling a firm to build similar capabilities in each industry. Some have the potential to generate distinctive value, while some resources can have a negative impact on value creation, and indeed, some managerial actions of misappropriation of profits can indeed lead to destruction of value. Of course, while individual HR policies alone are less likely to generate SCE, of course, as I mentioned, no, so we need to focus on this representation for managerial actions of some misappropriation of profits can indeed lead to destruction of value. Okay, questions and learning activities. Question number 1. Competing at a professional level requires you to offer something that is distinctive, inimitable, and rare. Can you identify any aspects of your personal human resource competency or competencies and how capabilities that provide you with an advantage? If so, how might you try and apply this to a business setting? Question number 2. Thinking about your organization's resources and capabilities. Analysis and identify the resources that are rare, valuable, inimitable, and organized in a way that allows your firm a source of competitive advantage. What barriers do you think might preserve such an advantage? Question number 3. Thinking about your organizational resources and capabilities. Analyzes and identify the resources that is neither rare nor valuable and are organized in a way that allows imitation and is a cause of competitive parity or disadvantage. What investment or acquisition of new resources might offer your firm some competitive advantage? Another chapter is or module is institutional theory and strategic human resource management. Excuse. In addition to the major school of thought impacting the study of SHRM and ER, it highlights the importance of institution from a people management perspective. Excuse. The impact of contextual environment, especially the influence of institutional mechanism, is shaping the nature and extent of human resource management practices is quite pervasive. Of course, it begins by revisiting the importance of the wider external context and how various types of institutional mechanism at work shape HRM practices. This requires a brief understanding of the core assumptions of institutional theory. Building on the author's recent research on India's information technology industry, a brief account is offered of how various institutional forces and actors in the systems shape the nature and extent of human resource management practices and the IT industry's growth within the domain of SHRM. And some argue that work design and management of people in workplaces is governed by strategic choices exercised by the dominant coalition of stakeholders. For example, the authors argue that institutional norms, rules, and structures can shape the final work and workplace practices. Still others who have attempted to adopt an inclusive approach by integrating the two theoretical approaches of institutional theory and strategic choice theory argue for analyzing their combined impact in shaping work and workplace practices, noting the debates on best practice and best fit theories in the SHRM literature by Paawe and Bosele proposed that the field is ready for the alternate explanation as HRM practices in much as they are shaped by internal strategic choices and context. They are also influenced by and embedded in a country's national institutional environment. Thus, many learnings from the tenets of institutional theory can be employed in furthering our understanding of SHRM and ER, making a case for differences in institutional environments, say between the Anglo-Saxon nations such as the UK and US and Rhenish countries such as Germany, France, and the Netherlands. Pawe and Bosile propose the concept of new institutionalism and highlight how the institutional context shape the nature and extent of practices between regions. While institutional mechanisms have a pervasive impact in shaping the behavior of people and people in society through normative, cognitive, mimetic mechanisms from a strategic HRM point of view, the relationship between institutional theory and SHRM dominant schools on the surface seems to be at odds as firm seeks legitimacy of their actions. Through institutional isomorphic pressures, firm often struggle to deliver differentiation, a core theme in strategic human resource management literature. The example used in the highlight that the importance of interaction between context, the human agency, and institutional environment to deliver three types of institutional fits, of which two fits, the deviant and innovative fit, can be a source of a differentiation in sustained competitive advantage. And the extent of this will vary in its context and depends on the quality of human agency in each organization's strategic milieu. Okay, so I will continue with my next video.